Hi everyone, this is Varley at Lavender Sky Panther with you on January 15th, 2025. This is Sky Show number 204 called Look Up, Cloaking Craft Plus in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Canada this time around. This is part 6 of a likely 8-part series covering highlights from my YouTube community page, and in this case it's the time frame between 2023 and 2024. I have plus in the title this time around because I realized I am including other little points of interest, kind of stories and other things of interest in here, because it is coming from these slides are coming from the community page where I tend to post a little more, things of other channels, perhaps things of interest. So let's see what this show brings. In the meantime, I do want to take a moment to say a heartfelt thanks to all of you, whether you're new or returning to this channel, whether you can just stop in for a little bit or can catch the whole show. Tremendous appreciation to all of you. Also, if you do have a little more time, do visit any one of the, especially first 200 shows where I cover mostly the sky anomalies, cloaking craft to the detailed level of showing machine parts and other things. And yeah, have fun with that. I also cover nature observations and kind of words, wisdom, and spirit of the day things and other spiritual things. So let's get into this show for now. And first up is this fascinating scene. I was driving through a neighborhood and this literally just formed, kind of materialized out of nowhere. It's not a yard barbecue or anything. It just really was more in the family of cloud and not smoke from anything. And so it was rather curious because it literally, I hope you can see it, but if you come down to the lower right hand corner, it looks like the bobsled, the brakeman running and getting in behind the bobsled driver, and this is the bobsled. And the bobsled, in quotes, is a cloaking craft. So I know this is not just a barbecue backyard fire or anybody burning leaf material or anything, because we have definitely a mass in here if you follow my cursor in the lower right hand corner, and it is a more solid structure. And I know this just after observing cloaking craft for going on 6 years, noticing it intently in the sky, that there tend to be like wafts or wafts of this kind of what I call plasma or cloaking material that clings to the outside of objects, and it's absolutely doing this in the same way. So there seems to be a bit too much structure for this just to be some haphazard smoke. Also, it's a very rigid structure. Something's coming very clearly horizontal, and then we have things picking up and moving at all angles again. So I was going through actually a very difficult time this particular afternoon, and with loved ones, in the hospital, etc. And I really feel that as I was on my way, this was meant for me. It's like a little, something kind of humorous, maybe to lighten the mood and make me kind of wonder at the fascination of what can be created with some of these craft, what they're able to do, whoever's involved with that. So anyway, we're going to move along. This is just another scene which caught my interest, and just because we have some weird parallel, line type curved lines moving together, and then I start to look more and more and I see parallel triangles forming. I'm in the lower left hand corner here, and then we move to the right hand side here, and then we start to see a very golden, yellow light, presumably of a sunset going on behind the cloud cover. But below, it's a very reddish color. So, what is happening in here in the cloud to, create two totally different color signatures. Now, at the same time, I'm still really tracking and noticing this odd-looking cloud. And when I say cloud in quotes, I do mean cloaking craft is going on. Because here we have straight lines to a point, and they're perfectly parallel. So we've got two triangular shapes. And so we go up to the upper right-hand corner. We see those a little more clearly. And they've got that plasma material, kind of wafting or wafting in between here. And again, the plasma material, I'm just calling that as the cloaking material. And I'm just referring to that as something that's heavier and denser than just normal cloud cover, more than just regular water vapor. It kind of clings to objects and helps camouflage them. Anyway, we've got another presence of another cloaking, triangular pure triangle form here as well. And just a lot is very suspect about this whole scene in terms of, these look like craft as well that are kind of exiting out of this cloud mass. Anyway, let's continue on. This is another moment where we look down to the lower left-hand corner. It was looking at sunset toward the west, and the sky was getting a little dim. So my camera doesn't pick up things too well. It picks up some things, but things get a little bit mappy and grainy sometimes. But what I did pick up is a clear form that looks like a standalone craft to me. We come up to the upper left-hand corner, we can see it a little more clearly. And then upper right-hand corner, I just zoomed in more, played with the settings. When I say enhanced here in the lower right-hand corner, I'm talking about taking the original photo and just editing attributes within the photo itself, such as brightness, contrast, and color saturation. That's it. I'm not, adding anything other than some text and maybe sketch overlays or calling out a letter like A, B, C, D, so I can walk you around with me and point to things more clearly. But other than that, that's all it's involving. So right away, I'm also starting, if we look up in the upper left-hand corner, starting to detect also another object because it's got a little more solid color to it. It's, horizontal. There's a very straight line to it. So it tells me there's an object cloaking in there as well. It's at a slightly different color signature. This is more red-orange, whereas this is more raspberry. I also see little things here too. If we go to this blow-up version, zoom-in version here, that has a very distinct kind of triangular shape. Again, straight edges that come to a point. That's just not a natural cloud. So I suspect that these two are objects that are cloaking. Anyway, we're going to move along. This is really interesting. Look how vertical these just cloud and quotes spring up out of nowhere. This is extremely low over a suburban neighborhood in Miami and looking to the north. Look at this, a regular cloud wouldn't go this way and kind of dogleg back and then curve. So this is pretty fascinating. When we look to the far right, we can just see darker objects, which, again, those hold true even when I blast out the whole photo and move, enhance it so that it's really, really bright. I dial up the brightness. This still holds true black, which shows there's objects there. We also have some points sticking there, and so we see enough to see that this isn't just natural cloud cover. So it's a very creative way to show up. This stuff just started springing up vertical, and it just reminds me of a group of people dancing, to be more poetic about it. The other thing to note, key thing of note to kind of show there's cloak and craft activity here is look at all this gold and yellow. This is to the true north, and this is actually 7 in the morning. And so there should be nothing of this color, true north. And then right behind it, we have cyan and other colors, right? So this is a fascinating thing. And like I like to say, see what you think with any of these images I'm presenting to you. I'm just giving you my take on it, and actually, each time I pull up these photos, I always see more and more and more things, or see them from a slightly, look at things with a slightly different perspective. That's somehow how there's like a magic in these photos, how that works. All right, let's continue on. This one, we're going to look at the lower right-hand corner. So here's the original, and this was just springing up and just looked odd because right away it looked like a massive triangular form here. Again, if you follow my cursor, there's a straight line, a straight, edge here, and like another triangular shape wanting to form, and then a stick-like thing popping out of it. Just a lot of weird stuff, something flying off independent over here. So, with a little more contrast, I'm playing around again with the levels, the attributes from the photo, we start to see more stuff, and there's just nothing normal about this as if it were to be just a natural cloud. It's erupting out of nowhere, more or less vertically up, and also we've got a lot of these triangular shapes and sticks and parts and pieces. So we go up to the upper left, we start to really see this like pipe-like thing extending out of here. We start to see something else happening in here, so it looks like other craft are hiding within this big mass of whatever it is. And then this is looking more and more distinct, like a standalone craft or object flying out of this thing. We go down here, and that's it, zoomed in. So here's another, illustration of when I talk about, we blow out the brightness on this thing, and yet this still remains a dark object. We know there's an object there. We even see that this, slightly lighter colored stuff is that cloaking material, this plasma that helps hide these craft. because we can just see it, clinging around the edges of this thing. Now we go up to upper right, and here's this like stick-like thing, like a pipe. And once again, we have a straight edge. We go to a point. This looks like a triangular form. So is this a triangular craft just docking onto a bigger craft that's, cloaking behind here? I think it's possible. Look here too, we see some rigid, clunky kind of machine parts. So we're dealing with an assembly of various cloaking craft. So, otherwise there's no explaining this as a natural cloud. Okay. Lower right hand corner is the original, and we're going to move along this sequence to see what starts to pull through. So when I see a cloud, sky like this, there seem to be a lot of particulate, and when that happens, I know that once I start enhancing the photos and going through a progression of enhancements, I'm going to start to see stuff in that quote-unquote mist. So with the help of the digital camera, it can see a far greater spectrum or vision range than we can, and it can also start to pull out stuff when things have quote-unquote smoke and mirrors in the sky. So I started to do that, and I right away started to see a couple of shapes emerging. So we go up to the upper left, and then if you follow my cursor, I see a clear darker object here and one back here. And also what's fascinating about this is just the full range of colors. So we have royal blues, maybe some indigos, and we have red reds and raspberry, hot pink, magenta. And it's always usually very telling when we get a bunch of different color signatures that there's craft cloaking and hiding back there, either behind the particulate or the plasma type cloaking material. So to the right, I just show with just really rough sketches what could be going on. So if we look over here, that could be like this object, with another triangular form maybe in the foreground. And then we start to see this back here might be, a bigger craft happening beyond. Anyway, it's still a lot of particulate, so sometimes things become more clear and obvious than others. I also suspect where we have this white in the sea of red and this down here, that these could also be standalone craft that have a different color signature. It even looks, if you look at my cursor in the upper left, like this is some kind of craft with two little legs happening behind it. And it almost looks like it's shooting some things, moving this way. So, as I say, the more we look at any of these photos, sequences, the more you look, the more you see. And it gets really interesting. Also, if you start to zoom in, like this looks like also a craft. If you really look at it, if you follow my cursor and you zoom in, you start to see these things kind of look like parts and pieces that are highlit in the mist. So it almost looks like it also has like a tail, like two legs behind it. Like this would be the cockpit and this would be the bow of a little craft. Again, hard to see without all the smoke and particulate, but that's just kind of a sense that I'm getting. Is that exactly what's going on? Perhaps. Also, perhaps not. We're not going to know until we have the benefit of seeing this without all this stuff one day. Now, here's another thing. I've kind of broken it up in two things in the sketches over here. But again, the more you look, the more you find and see. This also could just be one big craft with a tower or bridge at the top, all part of one thing. And just the way that the plasma and the colors are around here can make it look like it's two parts. The more I look at it, I'm leaning toward this is one bigger, craft. But see what you see. All right, lower left-hand corner is what I saw to the naked eye. But again, after doing this for so long, I pick up even the subtleties with the naked eye, that there were different colors going on here, and this was a bright spot. So I had a hunch that once I started doing this progression of enhancement, so we go to the top left and then move over toward the right, some things would pop out, and sure enough they did. So in this case, we have like this brighter ball or spherical shape happening amidst all these other colors. And again, none of this quite made sense. This is looking west at sunset. And so we've got the sunset, if you follow my cursor to the far left, it's happening down here. So how do we have this bright white, cyan kind of ball happening? It also, when observing, is very important to notice how I feel, when I'm witnessing all of this. Now this is a continuation of the previous slides, I just want to point out. And this is that thing I was looking at, before, that I said could be one big craft with like a bridge tower, there. So we're looking at that again. But now I'm more interested in what's happening above it. So how do we have this anomalous thing, right above with all this other dissimilar activity going on below. So I'm going to say that this is also some type of craft in a more spherical or orb shape, or it could even be some kind of planetary body being cloaked back there. Really hard to say, but see what you think. All right, lower left-hand corner is the original photo. This is at a shopping mall with a grocery store. And I noticed strange cloud activity happening right above. And I really noticed this here if you look at my cursor to the left of this palm tree. When we go up one, I start to do enhancements, and we start to see that looks like a symmetrical craft. We see just sitting on the top of this cloud, using it like a dock, or like a landing pad. So presumably that means there's a bigger craft hiding and cloaking in this quote-unquote cloud mass, right? And it's just resting on top. So we go over one more to the right, and here we go. We start to see what could be the bow and a straight line, and these two little tail-like things on the back are symmetrical. And here we are to the far right too. And even up here, it says disc form. And, a lot of this, it depends on, some stuff might be hard to see, and in that event it is, you just, if you squint your eyes, sometimes you see more. So actually, if we hop back to the middle, I put these out of sequence, the progression would have been this, and then this to the right, and then the middle one. But look here at this disc or ring form. Follow my cursor. This is a pure ring. It's a pure, kind of ellipsoidal ring. It looks like, a rim on something else, and it has little indentations and in a pattern. So, to me, when I see something like that, you see it over here too, we know it's a precise engineered part. So we're talking machine parts. And then when we get into an enlargement down here, we can see the ring even more pronounced. There seems to be maybe even a triangular form within it. There's like a hole here, perfect hole. And then we even see a triangular form off over here. So it looks like that this is the craft, and there might be other objects coming and going. It's just a fascinating scene. Okay, this is the plus part of the title, Cloaking Craft Plus. So these were other just items of interest going through all of my community page posts. And this was just a beautiful moment when this dolphin, sprang up out of the water. And over to the right was a moment when I saw a clear X. Now, I do want to just throw it out there that I know we all talk about chemtrails. I used to say chemical-filled trails forever on my earlier shows, just to be sure to avoid the annoying banner that this platform would always put up under every show. Now it's so clear and solid evidence that, yes, there are chemtrails, so that banner better not show up. But anyway, this is at the early days when anybody who said those words was labeled as a conspiracy theorist. Now we know, everyone knows now, it's fact, and we knew it back then, and we know it now. Patents are pulled for this technology, and it's very real. But what I want to say is, not everything, at least according to what I'm seeing, is necessarily a chemtrail or chemical-filled trail. My theory, too, is that there's a lot going on up there that you could also call just a simple camouflage trail that might not have any toxins or chemicals in it. And a lot of times when I see these really low X's, I mean, this is extremely low altitude over a neighborhood in Miami, in a suburban area. Sometimes I think it's done as a red herring, so there could be a large cloaking craft beyond. And sometimes these X's are made, I think, to draw the eye over to look at this so that you don't see a bigger craft beyond. I've seen plenty of examples where that could hold true. All right, now this is another little sequence. The original's in the upper left, and it just looked weird. And also, this was to the naked eye, and it had what I like to call a staccato cloud effect. It's when the cloud cover just looks kind of choppy, even a little bit blurred. It's almost like, looks like looking at something through frosted glass, like in the old detective movies, I guess, of the 40s and 50s that were in black and white, and the person would knock on the door to see a private eye or a detective, and the half glass of the door would be kind of rippled, almost like looking through really thick water, rippled water. Anyway, that's the effect this has even to the naked eye. So with some enhancement, I started to see right away some interesting color signatures, And, you know, there's no natural cloud that'll do this, where it looks almost like a chunk, like a boulder, and then a straight or curved, you know, line and geometrical shape is happening down here, splayed at a totally different angle. That just doesn't happen in natural clouds, and not in the area where I'm in. So anywhere that you look here and it says Miami, this is coming from an area I know for decades and decades, and we've never had clouds like this in this area. Usually it just was always traditionally cumulus clouds, or maybe anvil, thunderheads we call them, like an anvil shape at the top of a billowing cloud that was still a cumulus cloud. And now we're seeing all kinds of crazy configurations like this, so I know there's cloaking craft happening in there. All right, this was interesting in Miami, and this one I'm just saying is a large veiled craft behind a solar simulator. So for me, there is a solar simulator. There's patents pulled on it. I cover that in one of my first 5 shows ever on this channel. And there are patents pulled on it. It's just saying there's like an artificial sun or tech happening in front of our original golden sun. And in this glare of this object that I'm going to call a solar simulator for now, there was another object. So I want to say it's a large craft or some type of spherical object with a designed pattern. There's like a definite engineered pattern on this thing. So I think it's just a really large craft hiding in the glow of this glare, of this artificial sun or projection of it. So down in the lower right-hand corner was actually the original photo. This thing was so bright and glaring. Also notable is that this looks way too close to be our original natural sun. That's why I really say it's a solar simulator. But here there's such a glare going on around it. It was hard to catch just to the naked eye. But in the photos, you know, it did feel like something was up here, and that's where we start to see this object. So I'm going to move along, but feel free with any of these slides that I go through to go back and take your time and really have a good look at some of these things. See what you think. All right, lower left-hand corner, I was just capturing a phenomenon where the sky turned so pink-purple that even the pavement glowed that color, and the grass even, like, you know, the mulch, everything was like kind of turning this pink lavender cast. It was just gorgeous. And so I don't have the picture paired with this to show what was going on up above at the same time, but that's in my earlier shows, one of my first 200 shows on this channel. But they were just gorgeous. I'm just going to read this. It was like, the sky was filled with large, dark, shadowy masses, and there were cloaking craft. And then there was this ethereal cyan, blue backlit clouds, pink, orange, gold, and lavender colored clouds in quotes, and the skies too. And even the black asphalt or bitumen turned pink with a strange light reflection cast upon it. So I can't quite remember the show where I show the skies that are companions to this, the photos. I think I can almost remember it. I think it was just Strange Skies or something. But on the cover of that show, it's just like a lot of the pink and lavender. All right, now to the right, I'm just saying this is a must-watch show. This comes from the YouTube channel called The Final Days, and the title of it is 2 Planets in Orbit Around Earth, Surreal Images, Special Word from the Lord, on and on. So in this channel, the YouTuber, she really does a great job showing what could be happening with planetary bodies coming in, to our Earth's neighborhood, so to speak, and how they're hidden by the glare of what I showed previously of a solar simulator, so that, they can enlarge the glare of that thing or reduce it down. And the reason why they do that is they glare it up bright so you can't see these planetary bodies coming in. Now, she's really good at finding cams, like FAA cams, aviation cams in different places, and then pulling this out and analyzing things. So I really love and respect the way she goes through everything and walks everybody through to find these things and educate everyone. And she also is, really religious. So, if that works for you, great. I'm not sending you over there for the religious content. If anything, I just cover kind of spiritual things, but it's there for anybody who likes that too. All right, so here we go. We're looking at another view. I don't have the original photo on this one right here in the corner anywhere. I thought I loaded it in, but I did not. But anyway, this is a nighttime shot. And so with enhancement, this is looking to the east at night. There's this, like, the moon is supposed to be here, but there's some kind of weird, rigid structure happening here. going, perfectly horizontal. But then this thing starts happening. So I think this is an extremely large scale type of object. I can't quite tell you what it is, or it's like a group of objects, but there's clearly structure and shadow and, pure curve on this thing. So what do you think's going on? That's quite a mystery to me. All right. This is also kind of in that plus category in my title, so it's not going to be about cloaking craft, but something very important. This is taking a look back to what was going on in Maui with the Lahaina fires, and this I just wanted to shine a little light on it, and I have the YouTube link. I don't know if it's still active or if YouTube scrubbed it, but anyway, this one was called "There is Something Strange About This Fire in Lahaina, Maui." And I just recently posted another link to a current analysis of what's going on with the LA fires from the perspective of even looking what's happening with the trees and how can so many be still standing if it were a quote-unquote natural fire, which no, none of these were. They were absolutely weaponized fires from, let's just say, laser weapons, okay, directed energy weapons. So just I'll leave this for you to read on your own, but there are a lot of similarities, with what's happened with those fires. Okay, now back to the skies. These are a couple of examples looking around, and the lower two photos are the originals, and then just look up, and then you'll see the enhancement on some of these. So this was a really weird one on the upper left. We've got a very clear kind of almost like a wishbone form. And I think this is made up of several different craft to make the overall form. I've seen that happens a lot, where it doesn't necessarily mean it's one big one, although it might be. But it also could be like that's a craft, that's a separate one, and they kind of travel together. I've seen that happen a lot. Now here, upper right, this was just looking very curious. No natural cloud would just start to form like this. Again, it almost looks like it has facets and to a point and really straight lines. And then you start to see something happening within. So I think this is a part, if you follow my cursor, of one bigger craft. So this would be the back and this would be the bow. And we're just seeing bits and pieces of it materialize. This is also some kind of craft above. Of particular note this is looking east, and it's in the evening, so and it's very low in altitude. I mean, the trees are here, you can see, and there's no reason why this would just be highlit, bright magenta if that were any part of the sun, catching the sun down, coming, across from it. So this is almost like it's self-illuminated. Anyway, see what you see in these scenes. All right. Now this one is just kind of one of those real head scratchers. You look down in the lower left, I saw like a darker fuzzy object happening down here with bright spots and other more bright spots. So I knew once I did the enhancements, going up, we're going to start to catch some all kinds of interesting things, which we do. We start to see some bright white spots or, streaks. So we keep going, looking to the right, that's with more enhancement, and then to the right again, even more enhancement. So what are these things, They're going up with purpose, and that's not natural cloud. This is a pure whole shadow with a rim around it, and it looks like some of these white things are almost like little, not sprites, but like little spirits, pure white spirits flying out of there. And then this looks like a massive, triangle shape. And then this has some rigid structure to it in the foreground. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but I'm going to say that's some kind of cloaking craft all over the place happening in that mess. See what you see. All right, lower left-hand corner is the original. And I just, again, saw enough going on in the sky, and particularly noting the color signatures, that I thought, okay, once we get the enhancements on it, we're going to see a lot show up, and we do. So here we have kind of an ethereal light. There's a phenomenon that happens sometimes where another worldly light starts to come on the scene. It just is a presence that shows up in the sky. And it usually presents like this otherworldly cyan with white and maybe a little bit of purple. In this case, and sometimes it has like a little milk, it looks a little milky, and almost like looking at like opalite, if you know the crystal. Anyway, in this case, it was turning more like hot pink and into the reds and magentas. So anyway, just looking at it, I started to see a more perfect sphere or ball. So the upper left-hand corner, I just sketched, white line around it to show you where I'm looking at that ball. And then in the middle, just more enhancements. Just see this pure ring again. There's a pure circle, rim and like some dark area. And then over here, actually coming back up here, this again looks like the sphere with like a hole in it. And so I sketched that over here. Again, the more you look at these photos, the more you're going to find. The more you look into this like white mist stuff, you start to see a pure hole. You're going to find and recognize other shapes. So see what you see what you think is going on in the scene. And then once again, we have these little bits and pieces flying around. So these are like companion objects that I think, just hide in this stuff and fly out. So I don't know if those are craft of very small beings, or if those are kind of detectors, like instruments that fly out to take readings on the atmosphere. I don't know. See what you think. Okay, just a strange shape. This erupted really low. Again, I'm just, making some sky observations, standing out in a suburban neighborhood on the street. And you see these trees. This is not happening very far off in the distance, not even a mile, probably a half mile. And it just erupts out of nowhere. And right away, this is to the naked eye in the upper left. This is looking like a pure triangle. So with a little more enhancement, look what's going on. We've got all this like vapor. It looked like rain just dumping here. That wouldn't be a normal cloud. And it's just like pouring out of what's a total vertical thing that's not even looking like a natural cloud to this area. And then we have this kind of configuration. Nothing about this is natural. So we look to the right with even more enhancement. And I can't get too much more out of this other than it looks like a cluster of triangular shapes kind of clinging together. Back here, there's a pure form of a craft. I don't know if you can see that if you follow my cursor. That's a dart shape with like little fin tails behind it and some plasma. And that thing is flying out of, there's got to be a big, big craft happening up here. I'm not sure what this is. I have a feeling that this is connected with a bigger craft above. And I don't know if it's just dumping stuff down, or maybe that's like some kind of camouflage beam and it's really sucking stuff up. I don't know, but it's rather curious, and it's definitely cloaking craft in there. Actually, I'm going to come down and look at this weird little thing. We see it actually here. That was what I was talking about. If you look at the upper right, that was that thing. That's definitely a craft. We've got symmetry, we've got two legs splayed apart, stick-like things that hold rigid form. And I didn't get at too much what was in here. It was too heavily cloaked. But again, we got something coming horizontal while this is going on angle. And I think there are, several triangular shaped craft, cloaking in here. There's a small chance this could be an organic being, almost like these are wings, and that's a neck of like a little dragon. But I think it's craft. And again, here's kind of what it looks like to the naked eye. And it just looks strange, not a regular cloud. This almost looks like a trapezoid with two symmetrical sticks coming out of it. That's what really gets my attention, and that's a pure craft form. So see what you see in that scene. All right, I'm going to fly through this one because this was just strange. There were times where you see this second sun or second object, and you can see it because if you look at the lower left-hand corner, it looks like there's a pronounced clear object, round object, and then you've got backlit of bigger, light happening. So there are two objects, one in front of the other. So to the right is with a little more enhancement, upper left zooming in, and we see it very clearly. There's this second object or spotlight or something happening in front of a bigger mass that is a light source. And we move over, we see it even more. That's light, but so is all of this behind it. So it's just getting at what's going on. These are clearly cloaking craft. That's a perfect, triangular like dart shape object. And then we see a point up in here. So we've got multiple cloaking things, cloaking objects, cloaking craft happening all over the place. So again, take your time on your own time, and the more you look at these photos, the more you're going to find in them. Okay, this one is again more strange stuff happening. The lower left-hand corner, just everything seemed really weird because this is not a typical sky. This is in Miami for subtropical to tropical Miami. It almost looks like a snowy winter sky, which we would never have. And anyway, this is in September. So I just noticed that this is a great opportunity to, though, when the skies do this, because it backlights certain things and can clearly highlight particular shapes. So even though all of this is really weird looking, this is what caught my particular attention. If you follow my cursor to the middle, and then to the right, and then to the upper left, and to the upper right, you know, this thing, you know, started to look more like that kind of shape. And then with a, you know, triangular, you know, shape happening below, almond shape, and a bunch of weird little rigid shapes happening here too. So we know it's a cluster of cloaking, craft, and objects happening in there. This one is really bizarre. I just put, yeah, okay. I didn't even know where to begin on this one. So in the lower left-hand corner is the original. This is to the naked eye. So I see this object forming, and it's got like this kind of a ring of plasma material around it, and then these things, you know, look like objects in the foreground. So I gotta say, I've never quite seen anything like this again. The lower right hand corner, just with a little bit of enhancement. Wow, what do you see going on here? We got crisp edges with shadows. I'm still not quite sure what we're looking at, but there's a lot of activity going on there. We go to the, we'll look up at this object here, so we go to the upper left. Look at this. What's this thing? And is this up here an object? Or, you know, is this a hole or a portal? Or is this dark stuff also an object? It's just really weird to get a fix on this thing. But we have a clear hole over here. So, you know, down here is an object. And it has a straight line. And it comes to a point. So there's definitely some kind of craft or ship hanging out over here. And presumably more all over the place. And I'm not sure what this thing is on top of what must be craft here. See what you see going on in that scene. All right, this one was a really great, let's see, this image was a real fun one because we have this craft down here. Now actually I think I might have, yeah, I'm saying I'm looking at this again, and then there might have been a second one, but actually disregard my number 1 and 2. This is the actual craft scene, and I think what I did was I put an inset of another one here to zoom in on this. So just, you know, disregard that there are 2 of them. There's just one, and it's down here. This is zooming in and removing all color to try to see the shape of this craft. It is a craft because it's symmetrical. And it's got like a little dome-like piece, you know, in the center. So whether it's a craft or some kind of object, it definitely is one. Now we're going to come down here to the lower left. This was toward the evening. And there seem to be triangular things hiding in this weird cloud mess. Again, it just feels weird. This kind of thing, you know, just springs up out of nowhere. It's really low in altitude. And then you notice things like this. I noticed like this cutout. And at first I thought, well, there can't just be a notch out, like a clear notch in a cloud. So if when we come up to the upper right 2 photos, it turns out that notch out is actually an object. And we can see, you know, my trace over, I think it's something like this. And I think this darker swath here might be even like a trail that it came in on. There's lots of little holes and weird things in here, so, you know, more than meets the eye is going on all over the place in this thing. But again, when we look to the right, it's like there's maybe a denser, darker, you know, kind of plasma material. But this is definitely an object sitting here. And when we look to the upper left, on the other side of this cloud mass, we'll just say cloud in quotes, this was the profile of that cloud, and we can just see, you know, these clear outcroppings that are you know, plasma material just clinging to the shapes of the craft that's hiding in here. All right, here's another example. These are extremely low in altitude, and they're like vertical, quote-unquote, clouds. I was just driving along a warehouse area, and these things were so low, and they were different colors. So we go to the upper right. Here you can see that this looks like just a triangular shaped craft busting out of a bigger cloud mass that has other craft hiding in it. And then right next to it, it's all gray looking. And there's no light effect or tricks that could create the 2 different colors side by side. So this is yet again different craft with different plasma that tends to look more smoky gray. And there's another little craft either launching off or landing, hard to say. But look at the real gem of this is down here where this arrow is pointing. What the heck is this? It has holes. It's like a little like space capsule just sitting there. So we go down to the left. There it is. There's a rigid object with a pipe with holes. You know, I did little sketches over it. And up here, it's like a edge of a pizza slice or something. You know, it's a triangular shape with a shadow. So this was a really wild and crazy one, but definitely cloaking, craft, and objects all over the place in there. Okay, this again falls into the plus category, so it's not cloak and craft, but something else fun. So this was coming from a little challenge put on Sugar C's YouTube channel. I highly recommend that channel. You go visit it too for some very interesting things. And this, she had a little test your elemental vision challenge. So I took it to see if you can find elementals when you're out and about in nature. And I happened to go to this park and look across the canal, and I looked at the base of this tree, and the way the light play was in there, it just looked like a little being. And so here it is, and then with further zoom in, it looks like a little being with a life of its own. And it's more than pareidolia. I think it really is like a little, you know, combination between a sun and plant being. And, you know, it's fascinating when you see some of these things, because again, there's a feeling behind it. It's not just, oh, that's a light play. You feel like it's a little being. All right, here is North Florida, going through a national forest, and if you look to the right-hand side, way ahead there's a black bear very close to the edge of the road, but also there's like this very dark area in the forest, and I'm putting entity question mark, and we'll get into look at what the entity part is. But this black bear, you know, just stood out there, and it just had a strange feel to it. So kind of got the feeling like, is it really just a black bear, or are we dealing with some kind of shape-shifting entity? It's just a vibe I got. But anyway, I did go past it. It did look like a bear. But I always kind of also wonder, because in this particular photo, you know, I was trying to get it while driving and carefully doing it. But in this particular photo, this face of it does not look the same as when I got closer and went right by it and looked at it. So I don't know. It had a weird kind of morphing quality to it. Maybe it was just a bear, but again, not sure. Especially when we look at what I'm calling as an entity question mark in the next photo. So once again, lower left is where I saw the black bear, and then this dark, strangely dark kind of hole in the shrubbery. And then the more I looked at it, the upper left, I'm like, wait a minute, there's something in there, because there wouldn't be any light play to create these two equal points, you know, on this, what looks like some kind of object or something happening in there. So with more, you know, enhancement and lightening it up, it still looks like something. It doesn't look like a bear in a den, though. We look up here with a little more enhancement. It just looks like something else. And it doesn't look like a plant, and it doesn't look like a bear, but it looks like some other kind of entity. And I also felt like I was being watched by something. So anyway, see what you think. It was just weird, okay? Now, here's speaking of weird, another odd cloud. Upper left is the original, and this was just a perfectly rounded form with a very different look and feel to it than everything else. And it's low enough in altitude. It was not a cold day, so that form should not be happening. Anyway, a closer look at that form, we see pipes sticking out. I see a perfect hole over here. So once again, there's a strong, you know, rigid line in this thing. So this is a multiple cloaking craft happening up there. All right, this one I put on the cover of this show because it was pretty fascinating. Lower left-hand corner was the setting sun to the west, and I was driving. You see the car in the foreground, driving around Miami. And I just thought, you know, this was starting to look like a huge elliptical shape. So sure enough, when I look up, you know, going up to upper left, I put some enhancement, and boy, you start to see it. That looks like a large cloaking craft. Down here also to the left could be a couple of smaller ones. But anyway, I'm zooming in a little bit more here on the upper right with a little more contrast and whatnot. Color saturation as well, upping the levels of everything. And we start to see that's definitely like an outline of a larger cloaking craft with maybe some detailing behind it. These are echoing curves. You know, I would guess maybe this is the back of it, sitting on a little bit of a plasma cloud, and maybe that's the front. Anyhow, this also, you know, also looks like there's an indentation or something happening at the top. So that's definitely a larger craft, also maybe kind of coming in and out of state or dimension. And then we've got, you know, different color signature happening down here. So, and again, I suspect these might be two smaller companion craft or crafters that happen to be on the scene. All right, this gets weird. Lower left-hand corner, upper right-hand, upper left-hand corner. This is looking straight, almost straight west. And at first what caught my attention is how pinhole and odd looking this quote-unquote sun is. But then I see a diagonal line. And again, clouds don't do that. And definitely not in Miami and subtropical, you know, Florida here in October. So I put some enhancement, and sure enough, we start to see this whole thing's an object on an angle. We start to see weird little machine parts happening around here and here. Something else happening here, which looks like, again, like a dart shape or like an arrowhead shape. Something weird happening over here as well. And then I just took out the bluish color and put some warm color tones in here to see if we could see this in a different way. And sure enough, there's a pure hole here. Perfect design, you know, machine parts. So this one was just so bizarre. See what you see in there. The more you look, the more you're going to find. Okay, and this one, we're just kind of looking more at this quote-unquote pinhole sun. And just nothing made sense about it. And then, you know, back here I have cloaking spherical object. We start to see something, you know, if you follow my cursor, this whole thing looks like a big cloaking ball, you know, and then there's like even like a hole over here. So again, you can start to see it here. You see that this is a ball form, you know, and then here it is over here. Really strange stuff going on. Okay, this one, upper left-hand corner is the original, I'm pretty sure, or it might be one generation of enhancement. It's the most original photo I have here. Anyway, again, just looked weird. Something on angle and kind of frayed up here. That's not a normal cloud, you know. You can't point to a book of cloud forms and say that's one. It just is not. And so with enhancement, we see other stuff's going on, you know, down below this thing. And then we see that there's something vertical, if you follow my cursor in the upper right-hand corner. Something vertical is happening here, while something with a clear edge to it's going on diagonal, while something yet again below is coming straight across. Natural clouds, organic clouds do not do that. And then it's also interesting to note some of the color signatures. We get a burst of bright color in here. It looks very ethereal, otherworldly. We come down to the lower left-hand corner with more contrast and brightness. We see there's a cloaking craft object here in the foreground. Again, not sure what that object is, but it's almost coming down like a right angle type object on angle. Just a lot of question marks in this scene. See what you see. All right, more question marks in this scene as well. The lower left-hand corner, again, is kind of like in a warehouse district, but look how pure that triangular form is sitting up there. And then we look with enhancement to the upper left, and we start to see a few little more shapes. There's a little machine part popping up out of this cloud. I think this overall thing is one big massive craft beyond and another one in the foreground. But again, see what you see in this scene. It was just really bizarre. The more you look in here where my cursor is, there's a machine part. There's the silhouette of a triangle here. This is probably a separate craft coming across. But again, that's a pure triangle. Anyway, see what you see. This one's fun. I just say pretty darn creative. These are so low in altitude and so weird looking. And I see, it looks to me like a rubber chicken on water skis, but what do you see? So the lower left-hand corner was the original. And again, look how low it's looking, you know, to the east down a street. The upper right, I'm saying the rubber chicken on water skis because this looks like it would be the head, the face with the beak. And, you know, it's got the neck and its body, and that would be the tail end. And then these would be its feet going into water skis. So that's a cloud play of it, right? But if we really look at it as far as craft, what the heck's going on? Look at these tiers of, you know, T-I-E-R, tiers of these things going on a straight angle. And it's totally different in character from whatever's happening up here. And this looks like an exhaust or end of a pipe to pump out the plasma. Whatever the case, nothing natural about this thing. But I love, you know, the humor and the creativity and how whatever beings are creating these overall configurations. It reminds me of like that bobsled scene at the very beginning. It's very creative and very entertaining. Anyway, I have to mute for one moment. Okay, when I do that, I'm just clearing my voice, and let's move on. All right, I was on a main highway, pretty large highway, and I noticed in the lower left here off in the distance these straight parallel lines, so perfectly straight. And I knew that has to be some rigid structure cloaking. So in the upper left, I was actually trying to get at something else started to kind of materialize behind this pole over here. Oh, and hold on one more second. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, something was kind of appearing behind the pole as well. It started showing up in these enhancements. So you could see a perfectly round thing happening here. And I just kind of traced over what I think is a bigger object cloaking, you know, beyond in this particulate. And you can see the object back here a little bit. And again, just looking at these lines, look at this. And look how straight and hard-edged that line is sitting in the cloud. So I think this is just a massive overall craft, you know, floating along, nicely camouflaged. And the more you look in here, you start to see the end of pipes, like perfect circles and stuff. Okay, this again was extremely low in altitude. Just seemed to erupt vertically out of nowhere, not even a mile away or half mile away, in a neighborhood over a neighborhood. And I looked to the right, and it just overwhelmingly has this weird dome-like characteristic. When we look up here, if you see where my cursor is, we zoom in down here and see these little, you know, sticks and machine parts popping up out of the, you know, profile of this quote-unquote cloud. And then over here, this looked like some kind of opening, you know, like craft and objects could kind of fly in and out of. So it's just really strange. And the color signature, too, is really bizarre, this low in the sky. Oh, I did this out of order. So back to, jump ahead back to the other thing I was showing you about this overall massive thing with straight lines. I thought I had another one in here. You know, in the middle photo, you start to see a pipe end and all of that. And so in the lower right is where you really see it. Look at these parallel pipes to each other. I mean, there's no getting around it. These are all pipe ends, and they all are in the same angle. You know, in this kind of interstitial space, we'll just say, with this straight line. So we're absolutely dealing with an object up there. That's not even like trails or anything. That's an object with cloaking material over it. Okay, now these photos come from stills from somebody else's YouTube channel, just one of the public shows, and it was from, I will give the source, YouTube channel. As always with any channel, there'll be stuff I agree with, stuff I don't. What I'm looking at is source material and what shows up in the background of some people's photos. And in this case, it comes from The Facts by How to Hunt with Steve Isdall. And he happened to be panning around a scene or something, and I think British Columbia, somewhere in Canada. Anyway, I just took a still of one of his video pan-arounds because I saw weird structure happening in the sky. If you look at the lower left-hand corner, and I'm like, okay, something's in there because we have cross patterns going this way and then something vertical happening. So we go to the upper left, and that's just with a little bit of enhancement, and bam, we can really see something weird happening in here. If you really zoom in, you see pipe ends and machine parts, and like, what's this thing coming in or out of this overall thing? And this is kind of the area where I started to see maybe a more rigid shape. And again, look at this weird stuff. I mean, that's not normal cloud. And look at this white stuff kind of coming out of here. Like, what is going on in that scene? It just was too, you know, what do I want to call, noteworthy to just, you know, not post that on my community page. Okay, and this is also a similar thing. He's panning around to a different scene, and I caught this. So in this case, there was nice backlighting coming off the top of the mountain, and I started to see rigid shapes cloaking in there. Look at this overall thing. It's like a big arm, but it looks kind of symmetrical when you get here. It looks like actually an arm, like the wrist and like the back of a hand making a fist or something. But we have sharp things, you know, coming to a point. So absolutely, there's machine parts, and these are backlit craft above the mountains. All right, back to Miami. I just put down here on the community page, ever get a feeling a little cloud, in quotes, friend is waving to you? Check out this latest cloud head scratcher. So this was actually happened to be on October 21st, 2023, looking north at around close to 3 o'clock, and I was just in the city, you know, like it was like a restaurant row somewhere, and I was parking, and I just looked up, and, oh, lower, let's see, if you look in the middle, at the bottom row, this is what I saw. This is the original photo, and it caught my attention because I was going to the car, and I saw these just felt and looked weird, looked like another little triangle over here, and I'm like, what is this? Because it's going vertical. And then when I zoomed in, you know, with enhancement and all of this, we come up here, we come up here, we come over here, and it almost looks like a little being waving, you know, one arm up, one arm down, the hip down here, the feet down here, doing a little dance. But the more you look, you kind of see this must be, you know, some different craft up in here. I don't know. What do you think that's doing? But that's not a normal cloud, you know, configuration. Especially when you look over here where my cursor is in the lower left. That's another like standalone triangular form cloaked. So I think this whole thing is a ship, you know, or clusters of ships cloaking. And I still don't know what this is. I thought it was a little being, but now it just might be a cluster of craft. I don't know. See what you think. All right, this one's interesting. So the lower right is what I saw, and I'm like, let me zoom in, because at the time, a lot of different Sky and Earth watching channels were pointing out that whenever you see a trail, at the front of it may or may not be a traditional craft, like an airplane. It might be an orb, it might be some other kind of ET craft technology, whatever. So this was one of the first ones where I'm like, I don't think that is an airplane. And so I zoomed in, and I'm like, nope, that's not an airplane. And then up in the upper left, I see it's definitely not an airplane. And then I moved to the upper right, and I'm like, wow, it even almost looks like it has a couple of holes or something. But I think that's just the way the plasma is working over the top of it. But it's absolutely, to me, just like a little single-seater craft. And then look here, we got pipes, we got straight lines coming off this thing. What the heck, man? It's definitely not an airplane. So we've got, you know, what I'm going to say is alien or ET tech up there creating some of these, you know, again, not necessarily chemtrail or chemical trail, although it can be, but also can be just camouflage trails. Also, it could possibly be the quote-unquote good team, good guys, creating a lot of particulate to better hunt or find some of the quote-unquote not good guy, you know, bad guy craft. There's so much that could be going on. Or it could be the bad guys spraying, you know, just hard to say. In this case, I just didn't feel it was bad, and it didn't go on forever. It kind of cut out early, but again, hard to know for sure. Okay, this in the lower right is looking at the sky toward evening, I believe. Yeah, after sun has gone down. And I just noticed the void or the darker areas just looked weird, you know, straight line, just weird stuff going on. So to the left, did the stuff in enhancement, I start to see symmetry and patterning in this thing up here. And then, you know, upper left-hand corner, I don't know if I said up or down here, lower left, I meant here. Upper left, I put some color back in. We start to see that whatever this is, it's very different than everything going on beyond it. And then I also started to notice that if you follow my cursor in the upper left-hand corner, it started to have like an overall pointed elliptical shape. So I think what's going on is something like this. Maybe some triangular shapes in there, but I'm not sure. This looks like a different object when you look at the upper left. This looks like two sticks that are parallel going to a point, so that's why I said, well, maybe that's a standalone craft over there. This might be a little sphere. You know, there's a lot going on in there that we're just not going to get at because the particulate is pretty intense. But I do find it fascinating that we've got all this brighter illumination beyond and different color signatures, yellows and whites and blues. Pretty fascinating. See what you see in that scene. All right, this I highly recommend this YouTube channel called Scott Carpenter. And in this case, Scott has passed on, I think within a year ago, about a year ago, and he just did incredible research and work. What he would do is go out in the forest, and I think mostly in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, and he would have a camera mounted to his shoulder in the forward-facing position and also, I think, behind him. And so a lot of times he caught beings emerging out of the forest watching him because they weren't aware that the camera was also shooting, you know, behind him. They just thought it was forward-facing. So in this case, there was an incredible video. I don't know if the video is still up or if it got censored off, but in this case you can see the portal form, and it's called Strange Being in a Portal. And it's a little clip, but on a loop, but you can just see this is a being. That's the head, these are the shoulders, longer arms. You can't tell if he's kind of crouching or whatnot. I'm just saying he, it could be he, she, it, but definitely a being. And I'm not sure if it's a Sasquatchy people kind of being or some other entity in that portal, but it's definitely a portal, and you can see the clear bounds of the rim. And it's also like strangely foggy, a little bit shimmery. Pretty darn fascinating. So I highly recommend you go see this on that channel. He also has a few books that he has available still for sale. The family is also taking care of the YouTube channel, and presumably if there's a website. So anyway, take a look. Incredible evidence. Actually, also that Scott Carpenter has in his channel are all kinds of beings, and so he is a really great capture, again, because the camera's mounted looking behind him, of a Sasquatch that's like a white color, of the hair. It's just incredible, and you see him kind of dodge down and hide behind a ridge or like a little rock, and it looks absolutely legit to me. Anyway, I highly recommend you go look around there. Okay, this is another scene, and I just say I've never seen the quote-unquote moon shine a strong, clear, selective directional beam out before, have you? And so this was visible to the naked eye. The upper right, I'm just showing you, there's a clear beam coming off the quote-unquote moon. So to zoom out a bit and look at the lower left-hand corner, this is the overall scene of like a festival. Everybody's down here assembled in a park. And I just looked up at this one piece of sky, and that's where supposedly the moon was. But something just looked really strange about this scene. And the closer I looked, I just saw a directional beam that wasn't happening anywhere else around the quote-unquote moon. And so, here's zooming in a little more and a little more. Just something felt really weird and off about the whole thing. And what's strange too is we've got like a perfect curve in this cloud. So there's cloak and craft happening all over here. And this has to be shining out from some kind of cloak and craft. It's not shining out from the moon. All right, here's another little community post. I just said this goes with my latest Celtic inspired card reading. And you might want to have a listen to my earlier YouTube Sky show at the beginning. Sky show number 141 called Tree, Sky, Sun. And it gives a little more info about the Ogham, or the tree alphabet, if you're interested. And here I have listed, 1 through 20, all the different trees involved with the Celtic Ogham symbols, or the tree alphabet. And I guess I'll just read off. It has the the name in English and also the name more in Celtic language, but I'll just call them out for the heck of it. We have birch, rowan, alder, willow, ash, hawthorn, oak, holly, hazel, apple, bramble, ivy, reed, blackthorn, elder, pine, gorse, heather, aspen, and yew. Okay, that's a fascinating world if you want to go check that out. Okay, here now we're in Georgia, Augusta, Georgia. This show is worth checking out. It's, I think, show number 188 on my channel, called Look Up, Biggest Hole Ever, a Partially Cloaked Planet on TV. Okay, for whatever reason, from the very beginning, this channel has been heavily shadow banned. I know why, just based on the content of what I'm showing up in the skies. It was clear to me early on it was going to be heavily shadow banned. However, this one show, I must have had some help from on high, because this was allowed to go through and escape the gatekeepers, so to speak, and did get about 2,000 views. Now, this was an image, still from a TV screen, happened to be a very large scale TV screen I saw it on. I was walking through a room and happened to notice, and I just started laughing because I saw this overall, round shape with like a crater in it, and I said, oh my gosh, here we go. We got a planet captured on a live TV show. This happened to be the Masters, golf tournament, and it was happening on Easter, and in 2023 in April. And so anyway, I did a whole show just on that, and it did kind of make some rounds. I think somebody also tried to kind of rip me off my style and the content, but it only helped this circulate more, so whatever. I'm not okay with people, doing that, but it is what it is. And otherwise, I do invite you to go look at that show, because I do go in detail and analyze and show you everything going on with this. All right, we're going to move along. I'm going to move past this pretty quickly. This was just a very weird sky, and I zoomed in and played with the contrast and the color saturation, and there was a very clear red-orange part over here and a very clear bluish part with white in the middle. And we also have like this weird shape, so I think that's like a little craft in and of its own right here as well. Anyway, the lower left-hand corner gives a better idea of what's going on. It was just really strange, so I have to believe there's absolutely cloaking craft activity going on here to create and generate, self-generate these colors, right? Anyway, see what you see in that scene. Okay, here's another fun one. Driving around the streets of Miami, I saw this huge rainbow. But I took a picture because it felt like something bigger was happening above, especially where you have a separation with this cloud, almost echoing the line. So we look at the upper left-hand corner with some enhancement. There's like a pure ring happening down here. Lots of weird little things going on. For me, this was like a big band, almost like a toroid or like a donut shape coming around. Weird little things popping up out of here with rigid forms. You know, that becomes like a darker shadow now. Definitely felt like something massive was happening up above. Now, at about the same time of all this going on, I was having a theory after doing enough observations that sometimes when I saw a rainbow, it looked like it was just dying into an object, like right here, especially when it wasn't full arcing. And I have a lot of examples on my earlier 200, the sky shows, the first 200, where I had some clear evidence of like a triangle sitting there, and then the rainbow just came out of it. So I knew that was a thing. It was a potential phenomenon. So in the lower right here, I blew this whole area up, enlarged it, and definitely when I came into here, it just showed that this was dying into a bigger cloaking craft. And we also have like triangular shapes happening all over the place, and like this little bright white crystalline part is flying out of here, so that's some type of cloaking object coming out of a bigger craft. We have straight lines, parallel. Again, we got rigid structure happening in here. So it's very fascinating. It's a very beautiful rainbow, very vibrant. And then down here too, we see some kind of object hiding with some, pointed, this looks very rigid, very symmetrical, so very much like a machine part. Very fascinating. Okay, this was interesting. I was looking through some dark tinted film on a donut shop storefront window. And it was just pretty fascinating because in this lower left-hand corner, this is looking through a heavily dark tinted window. And so I thought, let me just see if I can see anything. So, the lower right-hand corner, you can see how dark this tint is because a piece of it, the window film was torn away. So you can see the difference. It was like looking through very dark sunglasses at the sun. So then I zoomed in a little bit more and was able to focus, and then here we go, the second object that's not the sun. Because here we have a self-illuminated object with a bigger luminary or some kind of, light shining beyond and backlighting. So we know we have two different objects happening in there. So it's just kind of fun to see it through the effect of like wearing sunglasses just by looking through the shop front window. All right, I'm going to move along. Oh, we know, so we just see kind of the outline of some objects kind of hiding in there as well. All right, this was weird. I just said, explain this one to me if you can. There's a lot going on in these photos. And, look at this. Like, we have this X pattern, which, again, sometimes I think it's just a red herring. Like, hey, look at this crazy X pattern. Meanwhile, you're missing, if you're looking in the central upper middle photo, meanwhile you're missing that there's cloaking craft all around it. You see what I mean? So sometimes I think this is just a distraction technique. The more we looked up in here, you just see weird objects in here all about. And in the upper right hand corner, there's even a pipe end here. It looks like something shooting out of it, flying out of it. So I'm going to leave this to you. Again, the more you look, the more you're going to see in here, but nothing about this is natural. You just look up at the sky in the lower left. That's what I saw, and I'm like, what the heck? Anyway, we're going to move along. Okay, kind of more of the same. This is not a condensation trail, no way. But, again, I think where this more precise X pattern is more of like a tricky technique to make you not look at these other rather unusual cloaking craft and objects. So here, this gets really interesting, right? And these are moving along this angle, and this is coming opposing, not a true perpendicular, but, at an angle. It looks like there's like a little craft flying in here to me. And then what the heck is this? I mean, this is just going like straight up. Okay, And then down below, we got a total gold explosion of color down here where nothing else looks like that. So very interesting stuff going on in our skies. All right, here's more. I'm just going to look at the upper right-hand corner here. So once again, we have more structured, what look like chemtrails or chemical-filled trails, but sometimes within the trail are little interesting objects. So I'm just going to say not all happen to be chemtrails. I think a lot of them are also camouflaging trails to hide things like these. Look like little cloaking craft in here as well. It's kind of a similar idea. We've got like these quote-unquote trails that kind of look like scratch marks clawed in the sky. And again, I think those are kind of distraction for our human eyes to be like, oh, just look at those. Oh, darn chemtrails, will ya? But then all behind here is huge craft happening. So we've got a ring form. We've got an interesting pattern happening in here. This looks like an egg shape. It almost looks like a face. So maybe it is a face. I don't know. Weird little holes and such happening all over the place. So again, I always say it would be lovely to kind of see the skies for once without all the smoke and mirrors, because I'd love to see what this craft looked like without all that. Here's another crazy one. Upper left-hand corner is the original. A little more enhancement. And here's an enlargement to look at this thing. What is this thing? This must be a huge, I'll just say it, huge-ass craft. Maybe it's interdimensional, coming in out of state. But look at this thing. I mean, we got like a triangular shape up in here. We got kind of like a straight line. Just feel the force of this coming down. And then we got like a part of a dish or disc or something popping up out of the cloud. I'm not sure what's going on, but I can tell you that's not, organic, normal cloud. Here we go, another example of backlighting, which I love sometimes. Here's the effect where there's a bunch of weird crap in the sky. These aren't natural clouds. And then you've got the quote-unquote sun beyond, which I think is the artificial object. Solar simulator of some type. Anyway, the combination gives us a great opportunity to see objects backlit. So we come up here, we see more, pure triangular shapes. But something weird was happening in this scene, because this thing was kind of curious. It had a whole different color signature. It was very blue, cyan blue. So with enlargement, you can see that's not like all the others, if you will, right? So these are definite triangular shapes. And here too, I think it's kind of fallen apart. But then we have like a stick-like thing with plasma around it. And then this is just its own thing. And I think this is kind of like a diving down dart shape. So that little craft is generating its own color signature. Pretty wild. Okay, this was, I think, the similar day. And, we got all that cloud stuff and something backlighting this shape. And I don't know what the heck that is, but it kind of has like a bell shape. These are two symmetrical holes about this axis, if you draw an axis. Two holes, perfectly pure holes, so maybe this is just some kind of craft and it's just pumping out the plasma or the cloaking material out of these holes, or that's exhaust ports. It looks like there's another hole here. Just really weird stuff going on in that sky. Here too, a similar part of town, and let's see, in the middle here on the left, that's the original. And I just noticed, kind of again, more of a spherical shape caught my attention. But then I saw like this almost perfect infinity sign on the side and something weird happening here. So we go up to the upper left, with more enhancement. That's what's going on. We jump over to the right and look at, we start to see all kinds of weird stuff going on in here. Nothing natural at all. Absolutely machine parts going on. And then here we see it, even more blown up. We got a straight line coming here. We got weird things happening all along the perimeter. It's just really strange. So again, the more you look in this, the more you're going to find. This even is like a fish-shaped thing on angle, just kind of stuck on to whatever this ball is. It's just bizarre. See what you see in that scene. Okay, this one just had a weird, like, quote-unquote trail going on, but that's not what was weird. What was strange is what's going on beyond that diving trail. And this looks like some kind of turbulence and some windy thing with a craft exiting off to the right. So when we zoom in on this piece to the right here, this is what we have. And, definitely something's going on. Something's kind of flying off this way and probably flying off that way as well. And here's a zoom in on all this kind of turbulent activity. I am not sure what's going on there. but it's got to be cloak and craft happening in there. All right, this is just a reminder. I'm kind of using this slide as a placeholder. When the whole news story came up, January 5th, 2024, a little over a year ago, about that whole UFO Miami Mall alien incident. And I just kind of expressed my opinion here. This is when we had like over 100 squad cars of police lining up over at Bayside, Miami. And that was the whole thing where there were supposedly people like opened a portal, these weird beings came out, but the original story, the cover story, was that there were juveniles with sticks kind of starting trouble, which is laughable because if you're going to have anything going on in Miami, it's not going to be sticks, it's probably going to be guns downtown. But anyway, so the whole cover story was fairly flimsy, and I watched a lot of the footage on YouTube before a lot of the stories got scrubbed, or you could tell some of the eyewitnesses that came out with the true story at the very beginning got compromised. You know, they got threatened and they changed their story. They felt very nervous. They seemed very nervous when they were telling it. So one of the earliest eyewitness accounts seemed credible to me because he mentioned some stores even that were there that weren't mentioned on the mainstream news, and I know for a fact they're there because I know the area. Anyway, what I believe happened was there were entities. I mean, the eyewitness reports at the very beginning, there were people who were terrified. Even like elderly people who couldn't maybe get around so well were full on running the heck out of there. And that's not a situation when you are in terror. It was a very dark energy. They saw stuff kind of gliding in dark figures, very tall figures, shadowy figures. And they were like right behind people and carried a very dark and evil energy. When you have that on your tail, you're not going to stand there and break out a camera phone and record it. You are running for your life, and that is the energy that was coming off of this whole thing. So I believe there's truth to what went down in Miami. Well, I'm not sure what it all leads to, but I do believe something very dark happened there that day. All right, now, this, I'm just saying the sky felt off, way off. So lower, you know, at the bottom row here to the lower right, it just was fuzzy and weird and felt strange. With more enhancement, progressively as we moved to the left, things started to emerge. Upper left-hand corner, we start to see there might be, you know, a few objects here. And also looking at the color signature and the level of kind of obscurity here. Just, you know, certain things started to emerge, like a triangular shape object over here. So then the right-hand upper corner here, I'm zooming in on this and playing around with more contrasts and stuff. And I just start to see maybe a few craft flying in here together. Certainly something's happening here because we have a perfect elliptical form here. There's things that are parallel and framing it. Definitely look like, you know, objects up there, cloaking. And like a shadow echo of other cloaking craft happening beyond. Anyway, really strange stuff. Okay, here's another thing happening January 15th, actually, a year ago today at 6 p.m. Looking north in Miami. So again, when we get to the color signatures up here in the upper right, that shouldn't be to the north in the sky. So I just noticed something kind of happening, you know, middle is a little more enhancement, the left side here is even more enhancement, and then I saw an object emerging, and what actually I thought it was an object, it might also be kind of like a hole in here. And again, I see like little pipe ends and weird little curiosities happening. With more enhancement, it does look like maybe, I don't think that's an object, maybe it's kind of like a hole in there with little things hiding and docking and just kind of resting in there. I don't know, but it's just really strange and very specific. And again, the color signature on it is pretty intense and should not be there, nor at that altitude in the sky to the north. All right, here's another weird scene. The lower right just kind of looks grayish, but to the naked eye, it did seem like it had some warm tones. This thing seemed just kind of weird. I knew with some enhancement we'd start to see stuff, so here we do. Going to the left, we're progressing a little more. Upper left, we start to see an object sitting here, you know, with a very different shimmery, weird kind of texture, right? And so what I could pull out of here is it looks like to me this is an object, and this whole thing is an object here. That's just kind of what I saw. But, you know, and another one here, this looks like the end of a pipe. But, you know, see what you see in that scene. Okay, this one, the upper left-hand corner, is the original. Once again, this whole thing is just too low in the sky, very low altitude. We got an angle coming here and kind of something with a more specific shape over here. So with some enhancement, I started to find lots of little oddities within this overall assembly. So it looks like this is kind of like a big object landing in here. Maybe another one happening up here. You know, what's going on with this like big crack of light? What's this here? Weird little, pipe ends and things happening along the perimeter. Seems like another craft is hanging out down here. Just really weird stuff. See what you see in that scene. Okay, this one I don't have the original, but if you look up here, actually, hang on. Oh, that's here, sorry. This continues. So I was like, what is this? You see my question marks, because this seemed rather specific, and it's almost like a little energy trail coming up out of here, and I could almost make out a dart shape or arrowhead shape. And so that's what this is. So with more enhancement, there it is. With even more enhancement, yep, looking like a dart shape or arrow shaped object. And then here it is. It looks like definitely there's one with another little object here. Plus, this is a very clear triangle right there. So, and then we've got straight lines, straight lines. This could be a whole craft with like a spoiler, like one of those like fins, coming up out of it. I don't know. See what you see in that scene. All right, this one is looking north at nighttime, so it's a little fuzzy. But with some enhancement, I was just seeing this look like an object. It had kind of a, not a perfect curve, but this seemed different right here where my cursor is than everything else going on, which was already strange. And sure enough, this looks like a very different texture and color signature, just kind of, dove, into this mess here. And so I drew a little line around it, what I think it is, and I think this is a craft. And there looks like a hole right there, This also looks like a little standalone craft. See what you see in that scene. All right, well, this is the photo of the day and the close of the show, so to speak. These are some tropical fruit trees, and I selected them and planted them on a property once. And they grew beautifully, but now, sadly, I no longer have access to the property. But this is a waxed jambu, green, a star fruit, and a soursop, if just in your own time you want to check those out. We also have an avocado tree in the back. So my goal was to have a variety of different trees that had different fruits, just in case anything happened down the line and needed to have my own food sources. And if you look at the vitamin C content of some of these things, it's extremely high. The soursop is said to be very effective in assisting to treat cancer, toward healing. There are parts of the soursop that are okay to use. I think there's a black seed in there you don't want to use because it's toxic. But just even looking at that as an academic exercise of what the soursop looks like is pretty fascinating. Anyway, you might want to dive in on your own to look at different health benefits and properties of these plants. Okay? And I just said, thanks for planting yourself here a while. On the source slide, I pulled this from one of the shows. So this is end of part 6. And again, I appreciate your being here. Thank you if you could join me for any part of it once again. I wish you tremendous peace and love and a beautiful start to this new year. And whatever it may look like, just, keep, like the sunny side. Kind of let's uplift this world, because in the darkest of times, that's why we're all here. If you found this channel, we're here to uplift it and look at whatever seems adverse right in the face and transmute those energies and lift them up. And each of us are capable of doing that. So I wish you once again tremendous peace and love. Till next time, Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.